Hi there, everyone. Welcome today to Indian Story Read Along. Today's story is going to be an illustrated book called Dadaji's Paintbrush. So, in northern India, in Hindi, and maybe as a nickname, kind of, Dadaji means grandfather. This story is by Rashmi, Sirdeshpande, and Ruchi, Mhasane. Dadaji's Paintbrush. Once, in a tiny village in India, there was a boy who loved to paint. He lived with his grandfather in an old house full of paintings. First, the boy painted with his fingers. He printed with marigolds, betel leaves, and coconut shells. As he got bigger, he painted with brushes made of sticks. They had strips of cloth, reeds, or jasmine flowers wrapped around the ends. The village children would peep through the windows to watch them paint. Sometimes the boy's grandfather would invite them to join in. So there's everybody painting together. You know what I like? Printing with marigolds, betel leaves, and coconut shells, all biodegradable. This is how we used to do everything in the old world, and that's how everything was sustainable for thousands and thousands of years, unlike now. The boy and his grandfather did everything together. They grew bananas, pineapples, and jackfruit and sold them in the local market. So this is what Dadaji does for work. Instead of just paint, he's not a painter. He's actually a fruit seller. They shared sticky, juicy mangoes with the village children and made paper boats for them to float down the street in the monsoon rain. They read books and picked out what they'd paint the next day. When the rains had gone every night, they would be on their rooftop beds and watch the stars until they fell asleep. They didn't have much, but they had each other. This is peace. "Don't ever leave me," the boy would say. "I won't," his grandfather would reply, holding the boy so tight that his bones would hurt. He's all he has. We haven't heard about the boy's parents or anything. But one day, he did. And I guess this is the last time that he is with his grandfather. And there he is, alone with his cane. And it looks like he's a teenager now. All that was left of his grandfather was the old house full of paintings. Soon after, the boy stood at his desk. He noticed a little box wrapped in string with a note that read, "From Dadaji with love." Inside was his grandfather's best paintbrush. At first, the boy didn't touch it. He couldn't. He wouldn't. When he tried to look at it, his chest ached. So one day, he put it up on a shelf so high, he had to get up on his toes to reach it. Days and months passed by. Seasons changed. The boy forgot all about the box, or at least he tried to. But mangoes didn't taste the same anymore. At night, the stars didn't sparkle the way they used to. When the rains arrived again, there was no one to make paper boats with. The village children didn't visit anymore either. The house felt empty, like the hole in the boy's heart where his grandfather used to be, where all the colors used to be. Finally, the boy took all the paintings and locked them away. In time, the paints dried up, and the box and the paintings gathered dust. Then, one day, a small girl turned up at the boy's door. She held a stick with reeds wrapped around the end. "Please teach me how to paint," she said, "like your Dadaji taught my mummy." The boy shook his head, but the girl wouldn't leave. "Oh, please," she said. So this is what he did. He educated all the village children, and they grew up, and they had their own kids. And now the cycle is coming back around. So he mixed up some paints and found her a fresh sheet of paper. The girl plunged her brush into the paints and dotted the page with bright blue and green splotches. Then she stopped and frowned. "It's no good," she said. "This was a bad idea. I can't do it." She was about to give up when the boy said, "Wait, there was always a way." He looked closely at the page. Then he remembered, and then he smiled. The boy unlocked the door at the back of the house and showed the girl his grandfather's paintings. If they looked closely in the background of every painting, they could see little splotches of paint, sometimes made with fingers, sometimes with brushes made of sticks, reeds, and flowers. Together, the boy and his grandfather had turned every one of them into something wonderful. All it took was time and attention. And so, the boy reached for the box, took out his grandfather's paintbrush, and started to paint. The girl watched and copied. They painted together every day, and as time passed, the house was filled with color again. The boy has been painting ever since. Sometimes the village children peep through the window to watch. Sometimes they paint, they laugh, and the boy makes paper boats for them to float away down the street in the monsoon rain. He knows in his heart that his grandfather will always be with him. So this is the author's note. This story is a blend of so many different things, but at its heart, it's inspired by my love for my grandfather and his love for me. He didn't talk about it. He didn't have to. Whenever it was time for me to go back to England after visiting him in Goa, India, he would hold me so tight that my bones hurt. You might remember that line in the book. That's him. He isn't around anymore, but that feeling that the people you love will always, always be with you, that's just how I feel. The rest of the story is based on my father. He's not a painter, but he loves the arts, and he's a kind, generous soul who gives so much to the community. The book is based on his childhood in Goa, and to some extent mine too. Not the painting, but the paper boats, the fruits, the market, and the monsoon rain. It just so happened that Ruchi, the illustrator, is from a similar part of India, and so the stunning setting in her artwork is just like our home in Goa, right down to the veranda, the rooftops, and all that beautiful greenery. Can you imagine how amazing it was to first see those pictures and realize that although we never once discussed it, Ruchi had painted everything that was inside my heart? How does that even happen? There's so much in this book that I believe in. I believe that there are no mistakes in art and that every single one of us should just feel free to play and create. I believe little things bring so much happiness, like sharing juicy mangoes or a story or watching the stars. And I believe love is something that lives forever and ever. I put all of these things inside this little story, and Ruchi has brought it to life in a way I could have never imagined. I love what we have created, and I hope you will too. And this is the end. Dadaji's paintbrush. Not a lot of things make me cry, but this one did. Dadaji's Paintbrush by Rashmi Sirdeshpande and Ruchi Mhasane. Please join us again next time on Indian Story Read Along if you like stories like this and other stories from any other old books that aren't in print anymore. We will see you again next time.